Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Maximus 9 motherboards from Republic of Gamers. So we've got the Maximus 9 Formula. Formula is a name that, if you're aware of the ROG branding, you'll know that's a name that they've carried forward from the last one. But this one is the code. It's the Maximus 9 code, and it's a new iteration in the Republic of Gamers naming scheme. There's going to be a few names that you're going to remember or going to be familiar with. And there are some newer ones coming as well. Right, with these, they are, the reason why we've kind of yomped them into the review together is they are actually quite, I was going to say familiar, but they are quite similar. So I thought with the fact that we were trying to get as many reviews as possible out for the 3rd of January, which is the NDA for Kaby Lake, because these obviously both do feature the Z270 chipset. And I feel like I've said it a million times already because I have in all of the other videos which you can find on the channel. We have a lot of videos that we've put up as previews on the Rush Kit channel, so you can go and find there the Z270 Tough, which is basically, it's Tough Mark 1, which is basically the Sabertooth with the armour. We've got because there's a new Strix line of motherboards as well, so we have the Gene on the Rush Kit channel that you can go and have a look at. We did a quick skim over of the Z270, a Prime motherboard as well, because that is the board that I actually tested the CPUs on. So we give it a preview to give the motherboard some dedicated time as well. And there are the full reviews of lots of other products and motherboards and Kaby Lake and all that sort of stuff on the my channel and my website as well. So yeah, I did great with that. I did far too many videos in far too short a period of time. So we've got these to have a look at. What we're going to do is we're going to have a quick skim through the box. We're going to talk about a lot of the features because they are absolutely ram-packed with stuff. To be honest with you, there isn't really enough time for me to be able to cover them all. So if you are interested, you can also go and have a look on the Asus website, or more information will be on our website as well. Yeah, there's just loads of it. So I'm going to stop being confused, or at least try to stop being confused, and I'm going to bring you in for a look. So I do have to give Asus a shout out for the 001 loving. Oh yes! Okay, so box wise, they are quite similar, as in what's inside them, they are quite similar. But this opening section that you can see here that kind of folds out, this is something that I first saw on the Rampage 5 Edition 10. And it is kind of nice. It does weirdly give you kind of more of a spectacle. I know it's just a box, but anyway. So we're going to take a look inside. And you get greeted with a massive sticker pack. So you've got a Do Not Disturb sticker, which is kind of this all along here one. You've got all these other ones. These little round ones go onto your fans, and you've got loads of other ROG ones. I mean, if you're a fanboy, then you're going to love all this stuff. It's going to be all over the place. Please try and refrain from sticking them all over your case, though. Let's go for a sticker bomb effect. Less is sometimes more. Do you know what I mean? I'm not one for sticking like the little i7 stickers on my rigs. I prefer it. Anyway, that's me. So you've also got a passport cover, which is kind of cool. And then if you've got if you're one of those weird or rare, I should say, PC enthusiast that is a bit of a fitness freak as well, you can maybe stick this to the back of your gym card or your Starbucks card, or I don't know, any card that you don't necessarily need to worry about covering the back of it with. Yeah, you can have your own ROG effect credit card, a likey thing. You also get a coaster. It's cardboard, but anyway, do you know what I mean? Get it on your desk. Then you've got a the manual is here with your driver CD and stuff, and also inside you do get, I think it does say on the back of the box, yes it does, yes, coupon code inside for 20% off cable mod cables. Lovely, lovely, 20% off, it's always good. You can use that on the custom configurator as well. So you can get them made to your own colours, you can get them made to custom lengths as well. So you get a wireless dongle with both Ugh, you can see I've not opened these. Right, so you get a wireless dongle with both, and it's magnetic, and you can also flip it round like that, but you can stick it whichever way round that you want. Obviously, it depends whether you can have it on the back of your case poking up like that, or you can have it like that if you're going to have it on the top of your case. Right, anyway, okay, moving swiftly on. In this one, it's actually a high bandwidth SLI bridge. High bandwidth just basically means you have the two things rather than one. But it is also a high bandwidth bridge, which is perfect for the size of your motherboard and the spacing of your motherboard, so you don't have to worry. But anyway, so you've got one of those in there, although it is generic. Wouldn't be that hard to make a acrylic cover for it though, if you were inclined to mod your stuff. You've got the CPU mount thing, I just don't like those. Then you do get a vertical M.2 mount, which I will show you when we actually get round to the boards, and this is for the second M.2, not just for one. Then you've got the, this is to make it easier for you to put the pins or the connectors in for your front panel, because you can clip them on this and then you can chuck it straight onto the panel of your case, so it's easier than trying to do it once the motherboard's already fitted. Basically you've got 6 SATA cables, there is a, this is an RGB extension cable, and it's a fairly long length as well. It's about 50-60 centimetres. There you go, yeah, we'll say 60. So there you go, there's all the stuff done in the box. Okay, so with the two boards close together like this, we're going to start to pick out the differences between the two. Now the Maximus 9 code is the cheaper of the two, so it's got slightly less bits on it, and by bits, like I said, we'll talk about that in more depth in a second. And the Maximus 9 formula is a slightly more higher end one. So first things first, and the most noticeable of the two is the fact that the formula does have an EK water block over the MOSFETs, and the code has more kind of generic looking, just heat sink on there. You still do get the cover, and the cover is pretty much identical. The only difference really is you can see this one's got slightly more bit of bling on it. So you get more bling on the formula than you do with the code. But with the EK block itself, it's they've spent a lot of time on it, and it's got much thinner fins on the inside. In fact, the inside looks more like an older, if you remember the old 775 days, looks more like an older MOSFET or Northbridge heatsink on the inside. And they say it's a cross-chill EK2 was developed as an improvement over previous design. It utilised a new thin fin design and increases flow rate and increases contact surface area for up to a 4C improvement over the last generation. So that's the blurb, and we're just kind of passed by that now. We've done the blurby bit, but it does look the part. You can see that if you're not going to use the water cooling bits, you can see we've even got ROG covers over these. It does end up, there's quite a bit of weight to it as well, which does give it a lovely quality feel. And I'll just whiz this out just so that you can see on the inside. Crikey, the thread's enormous. There you go, so you can see the copper channel on the inside. Now, there has been a lot of debate in the past because the black on it is aluminium and you've obviously got copper inside, but it's only, and people go on about galvanic corrosion. That's only an issue if you have bare aluminium and the copper touching, and then you would if you didn't have some decent corrosion inhibitors going on. But where it's anodized and it's done really, really well as well, you don't have any worries about it. Let's face it, EK made it, so you know that you've got a ruddy good brand behind you. When we've got hold of the board like this, I'll just show you kind of the power phases underneath and everything, and you can see that they're the high quality ones that ROG always use. No skimping going on. Look at the amount of caps going on in there as well. What we can also show you while we've got hold of it like this, as you can see the extra light trails going on in here. In fact, I'll zoom you in so that you can see a little better. There we go. You can see the light trails. You'll see the light patches on them. and that's just to let a little bit more light out. But the code doesn't have that. It's just plain. So the lighting on the code, you get a bit of lighting. Get a bit of lighting up here, and you get it down on the chipset. With the formula, you get lighting up here, and you get on the chipset. Oh, sorry, the code, you do get it over here as well. That does light up. With the formula, it's in the same 3 places, but you also get lights at the end of the PCI Express, and you can pick up some light that comes through the the armour as well, and you do get a little bit come through down the sides. So there's a little bit more bling on the formula. It's more lights on it. So yeah, it's not quite as subtle, let's put it that way. The other thing that the formula has over the code, when we put them side by side, if I spin it this way around, is the formula has the backplate already built on. It's already there, do you know what I mean? So there isn't one in the box. That just goes straight in the back of your case. With the formula, with the code, it's the usual way we would be used to seeing it. We have to clip it in separately. But other than that, you can see on the back panel, it's pretty much identical. They've both got 4 USB 2s, they've both got 4 USB 3s. They've got an A and a C USB 3.1. They've both got Intel Gigabit Ethernet. They've both got the same pinouts for the digital audio at the back with gold-plated connectors. A DisplayPort, a HDMI. This is Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for the back. They both support USB flashback, and you've got a BIOS clear button on the back as well. Talking about on the back, that's where the other big noticeable changes, because when we spin them round, there is a lot more going on. So we have a huge supporting backplate on the formula itself. Now, when you screw all the motherboard in and everything like that, I've never really noticed a massive amount of flex. I do think this is very pretty, and it is almost a shame that you have to cover it up. I think it's getting to the point now where I'm just waiting for someone to make a clear motherboard tray so that we can start seeing all this stuff on there, and then we're going to end up with these lighting up and all kinds of stuff. But you really would need a clear motherboard tray to be able to show that off. It's one of those things where you kind of buy it and you know it's there and you're like, yeah, I hope it's doing something. But it does look pretty, and at the end of the day, it's another just one of those things where they're kind of covering all the bases. It's for those people that just want everything. Now, other than that, the boards are pretty much the same. So there are a few minor changes on them, as I said, with the features. Amazingly, when you actually look down at the PCBs are different in that you don't just see a missing LED on the code. It's just not there. It's not printed there. You can't really see anything there. So they do seem very similar in features, but in the same respect, they're kind of not. It's a very weird thing. But some of the things that we want to pick out in and around the board, which obviously counts for both. First things first, down here, and I love this bit down here. So you have 2 pinouts, and this is for temperature. You've got an in and an out, and you've also got a flow sensor here. So basically, you've got a lot of water cooling stuff going on. You can see, look, water out, water in, and then flow. So it's all very cool. There are an immense amount of fan headers around the board as well. So you've got CPU fan here and CPU fan optional. You've got AIO pump here and chassis fan 1. Now the AIO pump can do up to an amp for an AIO pump. There is down here water pump plus, and this can do up to 3 amps. That is also matched by the high amp fan up here. This can do up to 3 amps as well. You do have an RGB header at the top of the board now, although I do wish they'd put that kind of up here or kind of like right at the top of the board rather than having it so that when you do wire it in, it's instantly got to come over the armour. So they get a bit of a slapped wrist from me with that one. But anyway, you've got an RGB header at the top of the board, which obviously can help you light the top of the case, but you've still got the one at the bottom of the board, as you would be used to. Down the bottom here, you've got a retry button. Now the retry button, if you get an overclock, if you overclock and it doesn't post the first time, a lot of the time you can hit this and it will, it's like a restart, but it's not. But quite often, once you've hit that, it can go through. You've got safe boot button if you've had a dodgy BIOS setting that you've put in when you're overclocking and you and it's hung. You can hit that and it will start it up. OK button. It's kind of self-explanatory. It boots up into an OK setting for the memory. I really don't use it very much, if at all, though. You've got the ROG extension button, and then you've got a USB here. It's kind of small. And yeah, anyway. So, but you've got the ROG extension. There's no other massive USB connectors on that. It does come with, though, here, a USB 3.1 front panel header. So the cases are eventually going to have to catch up with this. I'm pretty sure that these are normally okay for up to 4 external USB 3.1s. And obviously they'll share the bandwidth, but it's just the fact they can easily cope with it. You've got a horizontal USB type 3, then you've got 6 SATA ports, and at the bottom here there is the that's the second M.2 connector. And while I just lean across, essentially with the M.2 you have the bracket that I told you about before, and the second M.2 stands out like this. Now some people are just not going to like it, but it's only really going to be an issue if you plan on using 2. And that second one, if you run it, it will share the bandwidth with SATA 5 and 6. It's not that SATA 5 and 6 has got USB, sorry, it's not that SATA 5 and 6 has got 4 lanes PCI Express bandwidth, but SATA does use PCI Express lanes. So if you run the second one and the first M.2, it does just mean that these will get affected. And you're maybe wondering, where's the first M.2? Well, we come down here and we unscrew this panel, pop it open, and there you can see your first one, and it does go up to 110 millimeters long. Now, with that M.2, a lot of people have said in the past about it being covered up and M.2's overheating and stuff like that. Well, I did test the 2 terabyte Samsung 960 Pro, so the really expensive one basically. I did test that in the old formula with the cover on, and it did make a few degrees of difference. I think if I absolutely beasted it, I managed to get it 2 or 3 degrees warmer, but didn't make any difference to performance compared to an open air system. So it is going to be SSD or M.2 SSD dependent, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. It's just a bit of plastic at the end of the day. It's not like a massive hot box or anything. It's not an oven. It's not like super insulated. So yeah, probably should have tried to have put this on off camera, but anyway, we're here now, so you can see me doing it. Yeah, I definitely should have done it off camera. Maybe this is just me being a bit of a slow boy today, or maybe I just did need to be a bit rougher with it. You know what I mean, boys. Okay, so with them side by side, again, we'll just have a quick skim round, so just so I can show you some graphics. It's easier for me to do this so that you can get all the information that you want. So we have the difference between the Hero and the code and the formula. Again, really, like I said, it's just the difference between the light, the pre-mounted I/O shield for the bulk of it. But then, you know, kind of around the outside, they both got, like I said, the Intel 219V gigabit LAN, multi-GPU support, the Supreme FX S1220 codec, and then they've spent to be fair, they spent a lot of time on the audio with this, both on the hardware side of it, but also on the software side of it. So on the hardware side of it, you've got an ESS9023P, they've got an RC4580 buffer, there's a depot MOSFET, there's Nichicon capacitors in there as well. ESS Hi-Fi Saber DAC. So you've got a digital to analog 24-bit stereo converter. And they say that's the highest performance powered by the industry-proven Saber DAC technology. There's an awful lot of it on there, but also that's hardware. When we start talking about software, there's some really cool stuff with their audio routing. And as you can see here, you can now set up so that your speakers get fed by one thing, your headset gets fed by another. You can even set it, so for argument's sake, with Google Chrome, you can set that to go to HDMI, which could go off to a TV or something. Your speakers could just be the games, and then your headset could be Skype or Discord, depending on what you're using. You can essentially set up application-specific outputs. So if you're always on your rig and you've always got the TV on, watching Netflix, or I don't know, maybe someone called Tiny Tom Logan on YouTube, you can bounce that straight to the TV and it will just do it for you. You can even manually set different volume levels for all of the applications as well. So if you've got yourself a bit of a battle station going on, I'm not being funny, and I don't really like kind of admitting it a lot of time, but they do pretty much have this kind of audio side of it absolutely nailed down. It really is something for someone that's on their PC a lot, gaming a lot, enjoying stuff with their friends a lot. You know, you can't wait to get up to your room and put your Netflix TV channels on and be playing a bit of game and talking to your mates. And rather than having to set it up every time or moving it across, this just remembers it and does it for you, and you just kind of set it once. Honestly, it's brilliant, and it's one of those ones where I can remember a few years ago when I kept having to move it, and you almost have to spend like 10 minutes when you first turn your rig on, make sure you've moved that over there. But the fact that you can actually manually set, like I said, all of your different outputs to do different things now, that's another level in. So to be able to have the TV doing one thing and your headphones just taking notice of Skype, and you could still have music coming out your speakers, honestly, it's beyond epic. Right then, okay peeps, moving on to the performance and the overclocking. So the boards are incredibly similar, although the BIOSes aren't interchangeable, but that's just because the naming on them is different. I ended up testing them in the end on the 0701 BIOS, which is still kind of a pre-release BIOS. It may be the one that if you are lucky enough to go and buy one at launch, it may be the one that you come with. But do keep an eye on the BIOS updates. Don't just kind of fit it and forget it. Look at them and keep an eye on them. The same with the software as well, because the fan speed software, I think they call it DIP 5, the version that will come on the CD doesn't have an override on it for the maximum temperature. There's a weird thing, when you set a manual fan profile, it gets to a specific temperature and then it just goes to 100%. Now, that's fine for those of you out there that are always going to be gaming or aren't that fussed about noise, or maybe it can also be a little bit more difficult for those of you out there that have got smaller coolers, or for people like me that want to be set up for quietness. So I think with the Asus boards, it was set up for 70 degrees, and if your CPU hit 70 degrees, the fans would instantly go to 100%. Well, I said to Asus, that's retarded. You should be allowed to set what it should be. So if it hits 70 degrees, you may only want your fans going to 75%. You may not be fussed and you want to lock it into 65%. So, if it does 65%, you should be allowed to choose, basically was my argument with Asus. And they've now updated it, which will be a version that will come out on the website. It will be a part of the AI suite. And they've now allowed a tick box in. And if you enable the tick box, then you get to choose exactly what you want to do with your fan profiles. Now, I always favour quietness over temperatures. So for me personally, I always find the balance that I'm happy with. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't really want my fans going to 100% until it was doing sort of like, I don't know, maybe 85, 90 degrees. I'd rather it just, absolutely spaz out for a bit and then maybe shut down, a little bit later on. And then also things that you can set in the BIOS is your shutdown temperature and stuff. But having that ability does just mean if you're rendering and doing a lot of high encoding, because it's not really going to affect anyone's gaming unless you're literally trying to have the quietest possible rig ever when you're gaming, and you literally just want it to kind of, the fans hardly spin. And the other thing is they've got the ultra low mode on the fans anyway, so you can even get the fans, for those that are able to spin that low, you can actually drop the fan speeds right down, like with the Corsair ML fans, they'll go right down below 400 RPM. And I didn't really see the point in having, the ability to have your fan spin so low, and then it get to a point when it just turns them all on to 100%. So thankfully, Asus have sorted it out, but that's all going to be stuff that's going to come out on the website. I've got a version of it already, and it's, like I said, it's not going to make it onto the CDs because the stock is already in the channel. It was actually in the channel before I got my boards, but it is going to be on the website available for launch. So if you buy one of these, or in fact the Hero, go to the website and update the latest version of AI Suite. The other thing is, like I said, with the BIOS, there's been, because I've been through a couple of iterations with the BIOS on these boards, and that was basically because I wanted to keep an eye on them. There were a few issues at first, which I let them know about, and they got fixed. So with the 0701, it probably will end up being on the website for you to be able to download as like a previous version. But it's these ones now that we're going to keep an eye on. But the 0701 made a great stride forward in a couple of big areas. So with all of the other boards that I've tested, bar these two, 3,866 megahertz memory was the most that I managed to get. With these two, we hit the holy grail of 4,000 megahertz. 4 gigahertz memory, stable and running on these boards. And not just stable and running on these boards, we had a screenshot with a 5.2 gigahertz overclock. That's the first time, again, with any of the boards that I've tested for the KB Lake launch, that I saw 5.2 gigahertz. But that wasn't bench stable. You could go around and use stuff, but there was a couple of benchmarks that were tripping it up. X265 was one of them, and one of the Sandra benches that we did, I think it was the financial analysis, that tripped it up and it would restart. So that was enough for me to call, to say that was, we weren't happy with that. So I knocked it back to 5.1 gigahertz. Knocking it back to 5.1 gigahertz, still with the 4,000 memory intact, was how we did our overclock. Now, the weird thing about it is for 5.1 and 4,000 megahertz, because the cache in the way that the BIOS is done now, before you had cache for the high memory, it would have a separate voltage. With the Z270 stuff, it's now in with the CPU core voltage. So we had to increase the volts. One of the other CPUs of 5.1, sorry, one of the other motherboards of 5.1 was doing it 1.325. This did need 1.375 volts to keep everything in check. But that was, as I said, with 4,000 megahertz memory in tow. But the crazy thing is with the 0701 BIOS, it did drop the CPU temps by about 8 degrees across the board. It seemed to make a bigger difference the further up the voltage range that we went. So the more the volts went up, the more the temperatures appeared to be lower. It was amazing, to the point where even with 1.375 volts and even running OCCT, and we were loading up 90% of the memory, and to get the 4,000 megahertz memory in check, I was having to use a fair bit of VCCIO volts and system agent volts to get them stable. But you would expect that because of the extreme speed. We still only recorded a maximum temperature of 77 degrees. Now, some of the other boards for 5 gigahertz and 5.1 gigahertz with lower memory and lower volts were way up above the 80s and getting up near the 90 degree mark. So for this to be kind of 7 to 9 degrees below with a higher voltage and running quicker memory was amazing. And it was the weird thing about it was a difference in the 0701 BIOS. Now, it's only because I've spent so long testing all this stuff and I've done loads of boards all at once, and I've been really finicky keeping all my notes and everything, that I picked up on this. But it's one of those really weird ones where I'm not going to know until we start testing more, and we start looking to see if the other brands catch up, or even if the other divisions catch up within Asus, because all of the divisions within Asus, so Prime, Tough, Strix, they have all got different BIOS teams. But the ROG BIOS, I can say, at launch, there were a few quirks. The 0701, I did find that if you had a freeze, like I said to you about with the Sandra and the X265, if you ever did get a freeze or it wasn't stable, you could never just restart it. It would always hang, and it would 55 hang. And what you'd have to do is go into the BIOS, turn the multiplier notch down 1, F10 save it, go out, go back into the operating system. Shut down, go back into the BIOS, go in, turn the multiplier back up 1 again, F10 out, save, go into the operating system, and it would go straight there. It's just a weird glitch. Again, I've let Asus know. I am incredibly annoying when it comes to launches because they get fed up with all the time as me just going, it's the BIOS. But I do say it a lot. And I kind of try and help. Now, I'm probably not going to be the only person that notices this stuff or that lets them know, but I do just find that, you know, I'm lucky enough to have this stuff come in to test. And at the same time, I don't just see it as I'm just telling you guys, you know, about it. I don't just see that as being part of my role in the grand scheme of things. I let them know, and like I did with the software and stuff, and it may only be the odd thing here and there, but if I can make the end product better so that when you guys get it, that is where I see it. And it's not just Asus to do it with, I do it with the other brands and have done with the other brands, and we've actually seen changes in implements come through. But like I said, with the BIOS engineers on this, I would say out of all of the ones that I've done at launch, this BIOS and the setup was without a doubt the easiest and to kind of get through and consistent as well. The temperatures coming through were amazing. It wasn't difficult, not really, not when you know what you're doing, to have got that 4000 megahertz memory running. Considering that the memory's not even on the QVL list as well yet, although I do know that Corsair were using that board to dev the memory kit with in the first place. But I can't, it's very difficult. I know I've said a lot of words, but it is quite difficult for me to put into words. And it may change, and the other brands may catch up, and the other, you know, divisions of Asus may catch up as well. But at launch, these were clearly kind of just the, you know, they were there, and you can tell that they've been incredibly experienced with what they were doing. And anyway, right, so I liked the BIOS. That's the way we can go with it. When we go into performance tests, when I do my stock tests, I chuck 3200 megahertz memory in, which is quite quick when you think about it. Chuck that in, enable XMP, Bosch, run, click out. I don't do any other changes, I just let them run. When I go into the overclock, what I did is Corsair sent me some 4266 megahertz LPX, which is crazy, you know, mental speed DRAM. Yes, but it does enable me to be able to really push the outer limits of the board. Now, I know you guys are probably going to, like I said, get 3200 megahertz memory or something like that, and it's going to be amazing. But it's really for me to push the boundaries with the overclocks to try and pick the difference between the boards. And like I said, these are the first boards that I've seen 4000 megahertz on pre-release BIOS, and they managed to lower the temperatures as well. And it would have been so easy for them to have cranked up volts, which would have cranked up temperatures. They could have slackened the memory timings right off, just so that you get that 4000 megahertz screenshot. And yet they've not done that, because when you do come to see the results in a second, you can see that it's fairly easy to see across the board they've done incredibly well. There's not many graphs, and you can go to the OC3 website and have a look, and you can see the whole 22-page review where we've done, I think there's like, crikey, I think there's like 14 pages of different benchmarks that we've done, keeping in mind that we've done all the boards that I tested for launch in both an overclocked and a stock state with multiple memory sets. I've literally spent weeks testing, and that's why you've not had many videos for the last few weeks. But it's... yeah, So what we'll do is IDA. So IDA 64, we bring this up. Essentially, you can see, and I'll skip through them. Don't forget you can pause. Don't forget if you are genuinely interested in the product and you're thinking about buying it, go to the OC3D website and you can see all the graphs and skip through all the pages and see all of our kind of mental written thoughts as well. But with this, the code and the formula, weirdly the code tops this graph, but predominantly the formula normally just edges it. Or we've never really been able to work out why, because they should technically almost be the same underneath, but most of the time the formula does win at the top. They're both overclocked the same, by the way. It was kind of annoying actually. I was hoping that the code was going to be a little bit down compared to the formula, but there really wasn't a lot in it. But in the IDA graph, they are the top of the stock and of the overclock. When we go on to X264, they're the top of the overclock and the stock again. Well, the formula is the code come down a couple of notches this time, but when you have a look at it, it's 21.29 versus 21.26. So it's 0.03 difference between the formula and the code, and it's only separated out by the Strixes, which are pretty much identical anyway. With the Geekbench, you can see again top of the stock, top of the overclock, and the same again with the gaming. They went top of stock and the overclocks as well. So what we are going to do now is move into a conclusion. Is I'll get my pink piece of paper out with the price on. Now, I do need to explain to you that Intel, in their wisdom, have stopped retailers, e-tailers and system integrators being able to talk about prices until the 5th of January. This is amazing because I'm meant to be doing my reviews for the 3rd of January. It also means I'm not allowed to talk to you about prices. Well, considering so many other people have just broken NDAs anyway, I've not been NDA'd to not talk about prices. The e-tailers have. So I've actually got some prices. Now I know that the code, and you may want to sit down for this, the code is going to be £307 and the formula is going to be £354, there or thereabouts. Now there have been a lot of price increases recently because of exchange rates and Brexit and stuff like that. It is directly linked into the dollar, and it's a big political minefield to start talking about it. I understand it. I understand why. I'm not happy about it. Don't, think I am, but I get why. So we'll just move past that and we'll save that argument for another day. So the performance on them is very similar, but there's about £50 GBP difference. So I don't know, $50? No, it's going to be about $65, $70 difference. So the difference between the two is going to come down to really what's in the box, which we know is the same. So then we're like, what it's going to be the actual boards themselves. So really what you're paying for with the Hero is you do get the extra bits of lighting, so it's a little bit more bling. I think personally that it was a mistake taking the lighting off of the code. I genuinely think that needed the lighting as well, because there's a lot of lighting on the other boards, like the other branded boards. The formula, it is nice and there is more light on it, but it's not brash. It's not like a Christmas tree. Some really nice subtle lights on it and it does work well. I do personally think though that the code deserved it for £300 though. The other thing really what you're paying for with the formula is you do have the EK block in here if you're going to water cool, and then you also get the implemented backplate in the back, which is pretty much taken straight off the Rampage Black Edition. So there's a couple of extra kind of really blingy parts on it, including that backplate. Now you might say that the integrated backplate is pointless. You might say that the other backplate around the back of the board is a bit pointless as well. Well, the good thing is if you like the board, but you do think those are pointless, then you can save yourself 50 quid and get this one. If you're just looking for performance and you're one of those people that don't have a window on your case, or you really just don't care about the lights and you would have turned them off anyway, then you can just grab the code. So it does kind of open up a bit of, a few more options there with you. I will say I think they are what Asus have done this time. Oh, by the way, what we ended up doing is giving the Formula the Enthusiast Award, because it's absolutely bonkers, and you know it is expensive. You do kind of get everything kind of yomped on that you possibly could do. And then what we did is we give the code the Performance Award, because it's a little bit more boiled down, you know, stripped back. You don't get as many, you know, like the water cooling blocks and stuff on it. But the performance is still very much there. It was really easy to use. It didn't fight me at all. Anyway, so you do have those two options. And also, to be honest with you, if you're going to be like water cooling your rig anyway, the good thing about the Formula is where it's all built in, you're not going to have to lose the armour to be able to fit a water block. So you've kind of got it all in there. So it does kind of help with that. They are built like absolute tanks as well. Like I said, they were very strong with the BIOS, and I'm expecting the BIOS teams to develop these even more. So I wouldn't be surprised if the scores do go up. Keep an eye on the BIOS updates. Keep an eye on the software updates, because people like me are annoying and will pester them and get stuff changed for you. Like I said, there's been some changes with the AI suite that I've kind of like been like a drill in their ear about, trying to get sorted. So yeah, my only real gripe is I think this one deserved lights for this much money. I do still think it's quite expensive as well, because when you do, go and look at the graphs again, go and look on the OC3D website, there isn't a huge amount of difference between these boards, and even if you just go down to the Z270A, which is the Asus Prime board that I originally did the CPU tests on, there isn't a huge amount of difference, yet there's a £200 difference. So what you're doing when you get something like this is you're investing in the fact that you've got the armour, which is for aesthetics. It doesn't really do anything else. It's just for you to look at, and it's nice. With the armour as well, that you can think about, if you wanted to, you could rip that off, and it's really easy for you to be able to paint that. Paint it, yes. Will it void your warranty? They're probably going to get funny about it. You wouldn't particularly want to paint this one because they've added those light trails in. If you were really careful with the paint, they might still show through, but I'm not so sure whether you'd ever really get away with it. But the code is the one, really. If you're going to paint something, this is the one to go for, because you haven't got to worry about those extra trails. The front for this comes off really easily. As in the metal bit, get a hairdryer on it. You'll be able to get that off. You'll be able to get this off, and you could have that white, black, grey, green. It wouldn't really matter. And you've obviously got the lights then to kind of back it up and give yourself an extra bit of a twist with it as well. The water side of it as well, where you've got the water flow that you can plug in, and you can actually, if the flow was to, for argument's sake, stop, you could then set that up so that it would shut your system down, or at least chuck a warning up or something. Do you know what I mean? So that in it is actually really good. And then you've also even got the temperature things that you can plumb all in and keep an eye on your system as well. So you can record those with whatever, you know, apps that you're using. It will pop up and be noted with HW monitor, so hardware monitor. So there's lots of things on there that they've actually kind of gone the extra step further on. I said when Asus first brought the water pump header, or the AIO header as they called it back then, I said that you'd see those on every motherboard within 6 months, and now all of the brands are doing it as well. Asus have now got, like I've said, you've got the AIO one, which is 1 amp, and you've got the water pump one, which is 3 amp, but they've now got this water pump section as well, so I can see that being dragged into all of the other brands fairly quickly. And other than that, it's pretty much Asus, you know, just Asus through and through, really. They've gone a little bit further with the audio. But other than that, massively strong boards, but sadly with massive prices. And that's, as I've said, what they've done this time is you've got the Strix taking up the kind of £160 to £200 price point, because you've got the Strix E, the Strix F, the Strix G, which is the Gene, MATX, and the Strix E. They go up to about 209, I think. And then the ROG boards take over. And the ROG boards are back to being the absolute premium of the line, which is why you see them with all the bells and whistles, with all the extra bits and bobs, all the extra lights. It's just, I think it's going to take a while for someone to be able to get comfortable with paying 250 quid for a Hero though, which is what they're going to be paying for these. The Formula last gen was about 325 pound anyway, so the Formula is about on point. The code, I don't know, I think I would have preferred to have seen the code coming in around the 280 mark maybe. Or at least with this, like I said, I would have wanted to have seen more lights on it. Yes, you can I'd want them to be able to turn them off, but it does just seem that's where motherboards are going now, lighting, customization, all that sort of thing. And I think with the top two, yeah, I don't know, I'll leave it to you. Let me know what you think. No matter what happens though, 5.2 gigahertz with 4000 megahertz memory, my jaw was like, and then even just turning it back to, like I said, turning it back to 5.1, they still topped most of the graphs. And if they weren't at the top of the graphs, they were normally second place in the graphs as well. So they were absolutely stonking boards, but they'll stonk your credit card for the privilege. So, for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan reviewing the Maximus 9 Formula and a Maximus 9 code out. These get a ding.